I'm David Volk for Chin Music. Today's post, how are Project 2025 and a Catholic school prom alike? The answer might surprise you. No, this isn't a Catholic joke. If anything, it's a Jewish joke or maybe just a David Volk joke, but you'll have to stick with me on this to find out. As it so happens, many years ago I had to leave high school early to attend college at the University of Missouri for reasons I prefer not to go into right now. Although I missed out on my prom, a girl I knew in St. Louis invited me to hers at Koryezu, a private all-girls Catholic school. Since I'm Jewish, I figured it would be a cultural experience. So I agreed to go, setting off a very strange chain of events that I'm still puzzling over years later. A few days after I agreed to the date, I was at a dorm cookout playing catch when I missed catching a hard-thrown softball, but it didn't miss me. Instead, it hit me in the nose so hard that people heard the impact on the other side of the park. Blood gushed from my nose and I had to be rushed to the hospital, which luckily was just down the street. By the time I was done, I had 2 black eyes and a nose that looked like it was in its original packing crate. Knowing that the prom was a week away, I called my date, told her what had happened, and said I would understand if she wanted to back out. She didn't mind, she said, because she'd been in a similar situation before. Oh? When I asked what she meant, she told me that right after she had invited a guy to her junior prom, he got into a car accident and ended up going with stitches in his head. Despite my misgivings about dating someone who was cursed, we were back on track for a full evening of events. You know, dinner, dancing, a pre-prom mass. What? Having not attended a religious school, I had never heard of such a thing, and I was dead set against going once I found out about it. So I'm still not sure how I ended up standing outside talking to a bunch of guys, admiring my black eyes, asking if I won the fight while waiting for the door to the sanctuary to open. I can't tell you how weird it felt sitting, listening to people pray in Latin while I was quietly muttering, "Lord, don't let the setting confuse you. It's me, the Jewish guy." It got even weirder when it came time for communion. I may respect other people's traditions, but I'm a Red Sea pedestrian, and there was no way I was going to bow down on the kneelers because I don't believe the little baby Christ child was my personal savior or the Son of God or anything like that. When everyone else's knees hit the floor, my compromise was to bow my head, bend over slightly, close my eyes, and move my lips, silently mouthing the words, "God, it's still me, the Jewish guy." Despite my hunching over, my head still stuck out in much the same way a dandelion does when you mow the lawn and somehow manage to miss the weed it was attached to, so it pops right back up, only now it's so much more obviously taller than the other remaining blades that have been cut to the quick. Apparently, the guy behind me hadn't gotten the memo because he kept whispering, "Psst, psst, wake up," in a very loud stage whisper. I don't remember how I managed to avoid the line to drink the wine and chew the wafer, as Tom Lehrer says, without it being any more awkward than it already was. But I do remember what came next with great clarity. It was sermon time. I've never been a priest, but I imagine there are many subjects one could pontificate on during this, one of the happiest nights in the lives of his congregants. The temptations of alcohol come to mind. So do the pleasures of the flesh. Heck, if the guy had been cool, he could have gone with, "Don't do what I wouldn't do." Maybe even an uplifting speech about how they were the leaders of tomorrow on the brink of greatness, depending on the path they chose. I soon learned there was another subject that never would have dawned on me for such a festive event. For reasons that still escape me, the priest chose to use that special moment to rail against the evils of Judaism, even though it had nothing to do with the topic at hand. Much like the priest on that spring night in 1982, the folks at Project 2025 just can't help themselves. I bet you were wondering how I was going to bring this back to that, didn't you? Or weren't you? In what is an otherwise straightforward discussion of White House policy councils that help move the president's agenda forward, it talks about how some groups within those councils will have to move quickly to deal with issues that are handled by several government agencies. Yes, I know this is a schnorrer. It's just, but stick with me here. It's just, what kind of issues, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. Those issues include responding to China, immigration enforcement, changing regulations to promote energy production, and because they can't keep themselves from taking potshots at imaginary foes, they add, quote, combating the left's aggressive attacks on life and religious liberty and confronting wokeism throughout the federal government. Just like that night back in 1982, the attack wasn't really necessary. Both the priest and Heritage did it because they want to scare you, and they need you to have an enemy so they can provide you the solution to a problem that they just invented. Now, I don't know how many people the priest was trying to recruit that night through his ham-handed attempt at indoctrination, but I can tell you how many followers Heritage hopes to get by throwing out such red meat. It hopes to replace more than 20,000 non-political government workers with conservative loyalists, as well as lay off about 1 million workers by eliminating government agencies. And here's the thing. They're not bluffing. They've been interviewing thousands of people for the openings they hope Dementia J, I've never heard of Project 2025 Trump, will create when he fires everybody on day one. I'm sorry. Dementia J is too chicken shit to fire anybody, so he'll have his minions do it. As for my experiences during the prom, yes, we do come back to the prom, I'm pretty sure I didn't gain any followers, including the girl. In fact, I even struck out with her grandmother when she took one look at the prom picture of her granddaughter and black-eyed me. She responded, "If I were you, I would marry a German boy." And the saga continues. I've been David Volk for Skin Music. Come on. Not Skin Music. Chin Music. Oh, jeez. Okay, sorry. Have a good day.